James Holmes, Adam Lanza, Daniel Petrick, Devin Moore. Maybe a couple of these names stand out to you, but what do these names all have in common? They are all murderers whose murders were linked to the usage of violent video games. James Holmes went on a rampage in a Colorado movie theater and was a frequent player of World of Warcraft. Adam Lanza, the shooter of Sandy Hook Elementary, it was said his existence largely involved playing violent computer games. Daniel Petrick killed his parents when they banned him from Halo 3 after he became obsessed with it. He would play 18 hours a day and said he killed them to get even. Although some would blame poor parenting for the behavior of some children, poor parenting is not the only problem. Violent video games can have a major effect on a child's behavior because excessive use can alter the brain. Dr. Vincent Matthews and his colleagues at Indiana University, who have long studied media violence, looked at what happened in the brain of 28 students who are randomly assigned to play either a violent first-person shooter game or a non-violent game every day for 1 week. None of these participants had much previous gaming experience. Researchers found that those who played the violent video games showed less activity in areas that involved emotions, attention, and inhibition of our impulses. Matthews stated, "Behavioral studies have shown an increase in aggressive behavior after violent video games, and what we show is the physiological explanation for what the behavioral studies are showing. We're showing that there are changes in brain function that are likely related to that behavior." These children only played these video games for 1 week, and there were already changes in their brains. Can you imagine if these kids had to play for hours on end every day for months or years? In our brains, we have these things called mirror neurons. Psychologist Darcia Narvaez states, "We know now that there are mirror neurons in the brain that are activated when one watches someone else take action. In effect, watching someone take action is like practicing it yourself. So when a child plays a video game where they can kill people, begging for mercy, or burn people alive, they are practicing being cruel." Mirror neurons are the reason we may cry during movies. Not only do we feel the character's pain, but our minds are putting us in that same situation. So when kids are playing these games, their mind is putting them in that situation where they're the ones killing. Being exposed to this will make the brain focus only on threats and reacting to those threats, rather than thinking with the thoughtful part of the brain. It desensitizes players to violence and rewards players for simulating violence, and can teach children that violence is an acceptable way to resolve conflict. Our brains love rewards. So when we do an action and we get an reward, that's a reward, we will more than likely do that same action again. There's an example of a child doing this. There's a game called Grand Theft Auto, and this boy was only 8 years old, and this is an instance where the brain had a hard time separating fantasy with reality, and that's what video games can do. They make it very hard for children to know what's real and what's not. So this 8-year-old boy, after playing Grand Theft Auto, which is a game that is associated with encouraging violence and awards points to players for killing people, so there's the reward. He was playing this game just minutes before he took a gun and shot his own grandma. But he definitely did not get a reward in real life. According to videogames.procon.org, as many as 97% of kids ages 12 to 17 play video games, and more than half of the 50 top-selling video games contain violence. Let's just let that sink in. 97% of kids ages 12 through 17 play video games. That is a high percentage. So even if you don't have video games in your home, there's probably a good chance that your child's friends do. And these are the ages where they're still developing. So excessive use of these violent video games could be detrimental to their brains. I understand that the cases I brought up were very extreme, but they still happened, and they still showed what excessive use can do. I'm not saying your child will become a monster if they're playing video games. There are many great things about video games, like they teach hand-eye coordination, and the right games can be educational, so they can be a great learning tool if it's the right games. So what can parents do? The biggest thing parents can do is monitor their children. Know what games they're playing. If they have video games, make it in a room where it's open and you can see them. Parents need to be able to talk openly to their kids about the effects these video games have. If you're worried about their friends having these violent video games, parents need to be able to call the parents of those friends and have a conversation with them. Let them know that you don't let your child play those games, or that if it's okay, it's only for a certain amount of time. Parents need to know the importance of getting kids in sports and activities and hobbies, so children have something else to do. Educating ourselves is one way we can help prevent future tragedies. Technology is changing, so it could get worse. I urge parents to be cautious and be educated on the effects excessive use can have.